Hi, my name's Ned Cooper and I'm excited to present our paper From Fitting Participation to Forging Relationships, the Art of Participatory Machine Learning. Along with my co-author Alexandra Zafiroglu, also from the Australian National University, we explore the evolving role of participation brokers in realising the democratic potential of participatory machine learning. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on which I'm recording this presentation, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Now to the background for the paper and our research approach. So participatory machine learning has emerged as one response to the growing concerns around algorithmic bias and discrimination, particularly for marginalised groups. And while the field of AI ethics has made important strides in uncovering these issues, some critics argue that much of this work remains focused on technical solutions and the agency of technologists. In contrast, participatory machine learning advocates for a shift out of labs and towards understanding and addressing the lived experience of data subjects. Drawing on long-standing traditions of participatory participatory approaches in computing research, this emerging field of participatory machine learning seeks to involve end users and affected stakeholders directly in the design and development of machine learning systems. However, the turn to participatory machine learning has been accompanied by cautions against participation washing that have beset other fields of design. Recently, several authors have surveyed participatory machine learning projects and demonstrated a gap between the field's goals and actual practices. These papers have noted a tendency in such projects generally towards informing or consulting with participants rather than engaging in equitable partnerships. Nonetheless, successful case studies of meaningful participation in the context of machine learning development projects have gained recognition within the research community. So to better understand the strategies and challenges for meaningful participation, we interviewed 18 participation brokers across a range of settings and locations. We defined participation brokers in the paper as the researchers, practitioners, and activists who facilitate the inclusion of participants in the development of a machine learning artifact or system, and then implement feedback from those participants into the development processes. While much of the existing literature on participatory machine learning focuses on projects in North America and Europe, we sought to include perspectives from the Global South. So our interviews explored who participates, in what stages they're involved, and then how their feedback is implemented. And we interpreted the key themes across these projects through reflexive thematic analysis. So what did we find? So over the next few slides, I'll provide an account of the strategies, challenges, and power dynamics involved in facilitating such projects across, as you can see on the slide, across very high-level stages of an ML project. Firstly, how do relationships form? Well, we found that brokers really play a critical role in participatory machine learning projects, sitting at the intersection of kind of data scientists, though some brokers were data scientists themselves, machine learning systems, and the end users of or people affected by those systems. As one interviewee noted, many of the projects included in our study were driven by the personal motivations of brokers to open up space for others to do something with machine learning. That is kind of empowering participants to shape not just the model itself, but also its applications. Brokers often relied on prior relationships to recruit participants, and they actively made certain people into participants. In most cases, brokers really prioritize the intended users of a system. However, engaging indirect stakeholders proved to be particularly challenging for most brokers. As a result, some actually questioned the feasibility and desirability of incorporating these voices into development projects. A common challenge noted by interviewees was translating general discussions with partners about organisational and community problems and interests into potential machine learning capabilities. To overcome this challenge, many brokers use demos and prototypes to engage participants and help them envisage potential machine learning applications. As one interviewee noted, very few people understand what we're even trying to do until they see a model do something in practice. I should note, though, that brokers we spoke to who were based in civil society organisations, and particularly those working on projects in the Global South, tended to engage with people who were interacting with deployed systems to surface problems with those systems. And in these cases, the participants were often frustrated and reconciling with the systems, and the projects were focused on addressing those concerns. Interviewees who had worked with participants in data collection and labeling noted the challenge of getting participants to express their interests in a form a machine would understand. To support participants in this stage, several brokers created tutorials and training for participants to learn about machine learning generally. So it was kind of clearer why the brokers needed data in a particular way. However, the processes of labeling and annotation often challenge brokers to translate contextual information into machine-readable formats in some cases, as described in the quote on the slide, this really led to frustration from participants when conversations narrowed to focus on rigid data requirements. In terms of model development, it was identified consistently as the most challenging stage for participant involvement. While some frameworks exist, and we detail those in the paper, interviewees noted that there are few dependable tools or methods for participatory machine learning at this stage. Instead, several brokers actually prioritize participant input during model evaluation rather than model development, arguing that model development would require resources to train participants that would far exceed that of data work, and that model development was arguably less consequential for the performance of resulting systems than earlier stages. There's the relevant quote. Model evaluation then became a key site for participants to exercise power. They could determine whether a model improved upon existing systems and was ready for deployment. This was particularly the case for some of the projects in the Global South, which we outline in the paper, for reasons of which we outline in the paper. Overall, participatory projects resulted in knowledge transfer between data scientists and participants through brokers, bridging gaps in understanding about both the technical aspects of machine learning for participants and the social context of deployment for data scientists. However, brokers often encountered disciplinary divides in their projects, needing to convince the data scientists on their teams to invest time in building relationships with participants rather than focusing solely on technical concerns. And after project completion, brokers also faced tensions between the desire for generalizability in publication venues and the situated nature of participatory work. As one interviewee noted, in terms of engineering, participation is not traceable, highlighting kind of the lack of recognition for the value of participatory approaches in traditional machine learning evaluation criteria. Despite these challenges, several interviewees discussed strategies for scaling project outcomes. In particular, kind of getting the participatory approach right for one group before replicating the project and fine-tuning the resulting system with other groups. Ultimately, however, the imperative to fit participation into machine learning workflows implies an asymmetric division of learning, with brokers holding power in deciding what participants learn about machine learning, while also gaining insights into the situated knowledge of participants. Across the stages of the projects we studied, two real tensions emerged we found two tensions that made collaborative engagement difficult. The first being the conflict between messy contextual information generated through participation and the neat machine-readable formats required in machine learning. Secondly, there was also the inherent power dynamics within project context between brokers, data scientists, and the participants. So for participatory machine learning to realize its democratic potential, we argue that brokers must evolve from facilitators to activists. And this means forging ongoing relationships with participants to co-create alternative visions for machine learning, rather than kind of simply fitting participation into established engineering processes. We propose two key strategies in the paper for brokers to embrace this activist orientation, which build on the strategies our interviewees described. The first of those is to prioritize educating and advocating for end users by developing accessible resources to help participants learn about machine learning, and potentially engaging them in speculative design activities to surface and contest machine learning design assumptions. And then secondly, to attend to frustration and dissent expressed by indirect stakeholders, recognizing that as valid feedback that can illuminate important blind spots in machine learning design. This might require, for example, new methodologies to capture qualitative stories and then translate those stories into feedback for technical development processes. So before I finish, I just wanted to note a few limitations of our study. Firstly, we prioritize interpreting themes across projects rather than going in depth, conducting an in-depth analysis for individual projects. Secondly, we engage directly with participation brokers rather than participants themselves, so our insights into participant experiences are filtered through the lens of brokers. Thirdly, while we aim to identify successful projects, our sampling approach doesn't guarantee that the collaborative approaches represented were effective or equitable for all involved. And the practices and experiences in our study really reflect a subset of brokers that are already engaged in participatory work, which might limit perspectives of those new to or skeptical of those approaches. And then finally, despite our efforts, our study includes a minority of projects from the Global South, and we also had limited representation from industry in government settings due in part to availability and anonymity concerns among some of the potential interviewees we contacted. So thanks for listening. Please feel free to reach out to myself or Alex if you have any thoughts or questions. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at CHI. Thanks.